My husband, David Miller, was considered one of the most skilled hypnotherapists in the entire world. But when his first love, a woman named Clara, was responsible for someone's death in a car accident, he decided he would do anything to protect her. Instead of allowing justice to take its course, he turned his unique professional abilities on me. He held my gaze, his own eyes looking directly into mine, and spoke in a gentle, persuasive voice. "Clara is a timid person," he said softly. "She could never handle being in prison. You are going to forget what happened tonight. You will take responsibility for her. After you are released, I promise I will make everything up to you." Even our 5-year-old son, Leo, played his part in their scheme. He stood beside his father, nodding in agreement, and said, "You're not really my mom anyway. You're just a useless nanny. When you're in jail, Clara can be my real mom." I remember managing a calm smile, and then, just as they had planned, I forgot everything about them. But once my memory was gone and I was far away from their influence, they began to appear at my door every single day, pleading with me to just acknowledge them one more time. 11 months later, on the day my sentence was completed, I walked through the heavy gates of the prison. David Miller was standing there waiting for me. Our son was by his side. David offered a smile and said, "Let's go home. We came to take you back." He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, giving it a gentle pat. "Leo, go on and help your mother with her things." Leo immediately took a step back, hiding behind his father's legs. "No," he shouted. "She's a criminal. She's not my mom. Clara is my mom." He started pulling on David's sleeve, his lower lip pushed out in a pout. "Isn't it Clara's birthday today? Let's go celebrate with her. I don't want to see this person." David's expression immediately soured. He looked over at me, his face a mask of nervousness. "Elena, he's only a child. He doesn't understand what he's saying. Please don't let it upset you." I just shook my head slowly. "I won't. He's just a child who hasn't been raised with any proper guidance. That's all it is." David's body went rigid. "What did you just say?" he asked, turning his head sharply to look at me. "Elena, how could you say something like that? He's your son." At this, Leo began to cry loudly. "I don't want her to be my mom. I want Clara. Dad, let's just leave her here. Make her go away." As he wailed and sobbed, he kept glancing over at me, clearly expecting his tears to provoke some kind of reaction. But my only response was a slight frown. When he saw that his display had no effect, his cries only grew louder and more dramatic. David stood there looking completely powerless, wringing his hands together. "He's crying. Can't you do something to comfort him? You always used to care about him more than anything." I nodded. "Yes, I used to. But now, the person I supposedly cared for the most is calling me a criminal and wants nothing to do with me being his mother. Perhaps it was a good thing that I couldn't remember them. If I could, I can only imagine how much pain it would cause to have your own child say such things to you." I looked at David and said quietly, "I don't remember you anymore. I want a divorce." It felt like the right time for everyone to go back to where they belonged. He could be with his precious Clara, and Leo could have the mother he had chosen for himself. That seemed like the most logical solution. David froze in place. The smile he had been wearing became stiff and unnatural, barely holding its shape. "Don't say such silly things. We are not getting a divorce," he said, his words coming out in a rush. "You're just dealing with some temporary memory loss. It will all come back to you soon." He took a step toward me, trying to catch my eye. "You love us more than anything in the world. Once you remember that, you won't ever want to let us go. For now, just come home. You need to get some rest." He drove me to a large 3-story villa. I took a slow look around the house as I stepped inside. There was absolutely no feeling of familiarity, no sense that this was a place I had ever been before. If it weren't for a few personal items scattered about that were unmistakably mine, I would have thought I had never lived there at all. So, it was true. I had genuinely lost my memory. That explained why I had no recollection of the accident whatsoever. I started to walk through the different rooms of the house, hoping that something might spark a memory or feel even remotely familiar. Eventually, my exploration led me to a door that opened into a cluttered and dusty attic. As I pushed the door open and took a step inside, I felt a sudden, hard shove from behind from someone who had been following me without making a sound. I lost my balance and stumbled forward, falling into large piles of old furniture and cardboard boxes. The impact sent everything crashing down, and a noisy avalanche of forgotten items tumbled over me. A piece from a broken wooden chair fell and struck me squarely on the forehead. I felt a warm liquid, blood, begin to trickle down my face, and a sharp, exploding pain shot through my skull. My entire body started to tremble from the shock of it all. I held a hand to my bleeding head and slowly turned to look back toward the doorway. The person responsible was standing right there. I stared at him and spoke through clenched teeth. "You really are a horribly behaved little boy. What happened to your father? Did he pass away before he had a chance to teach you any manners?" Leo's face, which had been pale with fear only a moment before, instantly changed. The moment he heard me speak ill of his father, his expression twisted into one of pure contempt. "If you're going to blame anyone," Leo said, his voice cold and hard, "you should blame yourself for even showing up today." He lifted his chin defiantly, his voice filled with resentment. "Today is Aunt Clara's birthday. Dad and I are going to go celebrate with her. You're not going to be the one to ruin it." With that, he turned around, walked out of the attic, and slammed the heavy door shut behind him. I heard the loud click of the lock turning, followed by the metallic clang of additional latches being slid into place. A terrible sinking feeling began to form in the pit of my stomach. I scrambled to the door in a panic, pounding on the solid wood with my trembling fists. "Leo, open the door!" But the only sound I could hear was his laughter as it faded away down the hallway. "You're a bad woman," he called out from a distance. "You can just stay in there and think about what you've done." An intense fury began to bubble up inside my chest. I kicked at the door again and again, but it was useless. The attic, now completely sealed, quickly became silent and dark. And then, a wave of dizziness washed over me. It felt as if the walls were slowly closing in on me, as if the air itself had become thick and heavy, like water. I couldn't seem to get enough air into my lungs. My chest began to heave, and the small space felt overwhelmingly tight and suffocating. I slid down to the floor, my back pressed against the door. My vision swam before my eyes and my head throbbed with pain. Strangely, I could no longer feel the sharp sting from the cut on my forehead. It was as if a pair of invisible hands were tightening their grip around my throat. "Please open the door," I whispered, my voice weak as I tapped feebly against the wood. My strength was draining with every short breath, and then everything faded to black. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. The wound on my head had been cleaned and bandaged. As my vision cleared, I saw a thin young boy standing beside my bed, holding a cup of water. "You're awake," the boy said in a gentle voice. "Would you like some water?" His voice was soft, and his eyes were clear and kind. He leaned forward just a little, watching me with a look of cautious hopefulness. His clothes were clean but clearly well worn, faded from being washed too many times. I just stared at him for a few seconds, and he seemed to become smaller under my gaze, suddenly looking a bit shy. A small smile formed on my lips. "Did you save me?" "Thank you." He quickly shook his head, stammering a little as he spoke. No, it was nothing at all. I was just delivering a package nearby. I happened to hear a sound coming from the attic, so I called the police." He gestured with his head toward the door. I looked over and saw two uniformed police officers standing just outside the room. I turned my attention back to the boy. "It doesn't matter how it happened. You were the one who realized I was in trouble. You saved my life. Thank you." His face turned a bright shade of red. Without saying another word, he gave a quick wave of his hand and hurried out of the room to get the officers. The police came in and gave me a brief explanation of what had occurred. I thanked them sincerely for their help, and they left shortly after. It was then that I learned the boy's name was Sam, and he was 8 years old. Both of his parents had passed away 2 years ago. Initially, the authorities had tried to place him in an orphanage, but he had refused to stay. He kept running away, finding places to hide, and had figured out how to survive by delivering packages and running small errands. Over time, people in the area stopped trying to place him. The local residents had grown accustomed to seeing him around and would often give him a few coins to do small jobs for them. My mouth hung open as I listened to his story. I was in complete disbelief. For a long moment, I was speechless. Then, I turned to look at Sam again, and my heart tightened in my chest. "Sam?" I asked softly. "Would you be interested in coming home with me?" He looked up at me, his large eyes blinking with surprise. "Really? Am I allowed to?" "Of course you can," I said quickly. "I really want to," he replied, his voice full of hope. "Good," I said, smiling at him. "As soon as I'm finished here, we'll go home together." Later that afternoon, I took Sam back to the apartment that my parents had left to me. It was a modest home with 3 bedrooms and 2 living areas. It wasn't a grand or luxurious place, but it felt warm and peaceful. Sam was a bundle of energy. He ran all over the apartment, helping me move boxes and furniture, cleaning every corner of the place with a diligence that deeply touched me. He didn't utter a single word of complaint, which was a stark contrast to Leo. For the first time in what felt like a very long time, I felt a sense of comfort. If I were given a choice, Sam was the kind of child I would be proud to call my son. Once the apartment was tidy, I went into the kitchen and prepared a pot of pork rib noodles. The rich, savory aroma soon filled the small apartment, and Sam's eyes lit up. "It smells amazing," he said, his eyes wide with anticipation. He took a bowl and carefully filled it with tender pieces of pork rib, then placed it down on the table in front of me. "You're hurt," he said. "You need to eat more meat so you can recover." Only after he had served me did he get a bowl for himself, filling it with only broth and noodles, and began to eat in small, careful bites. I looked at the difference between our 2 bowls, and my heart swelled with emotion. I couldn't stop myself from reaching out and gently ruffling his hair. "I do need to get better," I said softly. "But so do you. You're still growing. You need the meat even more than I do." I used my chopsticks to scoop several ribs from my bowl and place them into his. Sam sat there quietly as I did, his face turning bright red as he nodded shyly. "Thank you, Mom," he said in a soft, quiet voice. A week went by. I completed all of the necessary adoption paperwork for Sam and asked a friend of mine to help me find a good school for him to attend. He officially became Sam, and by a strange coincidence, he now had the same last name as his birth mother. I couldn't help but think that perhaps it was meant to be. When the weekend arrived, I made plans to take him to the mall to buy him some new clothes. Early that morning, my phone started ringing, the sound sharp and urgent. The screen lit up with a name I had been hoping to forget. David. I rejected the call without any hesitation. He immediately called back and then called a third time. I declined both calls. Then, my phone buzzed with 2 message notifications. They were both from David. The first one read, "Why aren't you at home? The housekeeper told me you haven't been back for a whole week. Where have you been?" Where I had gone was certainly none of his business. I calmly opened my contacts and added his number to my blocked list. It had already been 7 days, and he was only just now noticing that I was gone. If Sam hadn't been there and noticed someone was trapped in the attic, I might not even be alive today. I blocked every possible way David could contact me. Then, I took Sam shopping. We each picked out several new outfits, and just as we were getting ready to leave the store, his eyes were drawn to a display near the entrance featuring matching parent-child outfits. "Would you like to try them on?" I asked him with a small smile. He nodded, looking a little bit embarrassed. "Come on," I said. "Let's go try on these matching outfits together." I changed into my outfit quickly and stepped out of the fitting room to wait for him. But it seemed fate had other plans for us that day. As I turned around, I came face to face with David, Leo, and Clara. The moment David saw me, his expression froze. "Elena, what are you doing here?" he asked, clearly taken by surprise. I didn't say anything in response. I simply looked away, refusing to even acknowledge his presence. David hesitated for a moment, his eyes filled with what I could only interpret as guilt. "I know about what Leo did, locking you in the attic. I've already scolded him for it. I told him he needs to apologize to you." He then called Leo over. Leo walked toward me slowly, dragging his feet, and muttered a half-hearted, "Sorry." It was completely obvious that he didn't mean it at all. I let out a short, dry laugh. You locked me in an attic for almost a week, and you think a single, insincere apology is enough to make up for it? Why don't you just wait until I'm dead and then you can burn some flowers and say you're sorry at my grave? David's face tightened. He clearly had not been expecting me to be so direct. Leo stood there silently, his head hanging low, his face pale. Clara then stepped forward, acting as if she couldn't stand to watch any more of the confrontation. She took my hand in hers and said in a soft, pleading voice, "Sister, Leo didn't mean to do it. Why are you being so hard on a child? If you feel you have to blame someone, then you can blame me. It was my birthday, and I was the one who begged them to take me on a trip for the week. That's why they forgot all about you." She then added with a sweet smile, "How about this? You just got out of prison. Why don't we host a welcome home dinner for you? We can apologize to you properly and help chase away all the bad luck." David nodded eagerly. Clara always thinks of everything. That sounds like a perfect idea. But neither of them seemed to notice how the other shoppers and the store clerks had all taken a few steps back from us. When they looked at me now, there was a mixture of fear and disgust in their eyes. I gave a cold chuckle. So they had gone off together on a vacation, leaving me locked away like some kind of animal. I pulled my hand out of Clara's grasp and brushed off my new outfit, as if I were trying to get rid of some invisible dirt. "Tell me," I said with a sneer, "what could possibly bring a person more bad luck than running into the three of you? My husband dragging our son along to play house with his mistress? If you like them so much, you can have them. I'll even pack them up for you. I'll throw in the wedding ring as a bonus." Clara's face turned pale with shock. She clearly had not expected me to say something like that out loud in front of so many people. The curious onlookers who had been watching me now turned their disapproving looks toward her. "So she's the other woman," someone whispered. "Shameless, stealing another woman's husband and son." Another person added, "Honestly, if she hadn't said anything, I would have thought those three were a happy little family, and look at that man, bringing the other woman right in front of his wife. He has no shame at all. I would be furious too, if I were the wife." The murmurs from the crowd grew louder. David's face darkened, his expression twisting with embarrassment. "You're just making things up," he shouted. "There is nothing going on between Clara and me. You need to go home and reflect on your own behavior." Clara's eyes were red with unshed tears as she softly tried to explain herself. "Sister, you've misunderstood. I'm not trying to take David or Leo from you. I just don't want them to feel lonely." Someone in the crowd suddenly spat on the floor near her. "Shameless!" the woman cried out. "Absolutely disgusting. The husband yells at his own wife just to defend his mistress, and the mistress even has the nerve to try and justify herself. Have the two of you lost all sense of decency? A pair of heartless cheaters. You two deserve each other. Get out of here. Just looking at you makes me sick." David and Clara were now surrounded by angry shoppers. Their faces grew darker with every new accusation. Clara, in particular, looked as though she was about to faint, and she leaned weakly against David for support. Just then, Leo stormed over to me, his small face twisted with fury. "You're not allowed to bully Aunt Clara!" he shouted. "Say you're sorry to her right now." He raised his arms, getting ready to shove me. But before he could even touch me, a small figure dashed forward and knocked him to the side. "Mom, are you all right?" Sam asked anxiously, stepping in front of me like a protective little cub. He stared warily at the people standing across from us. I gently placed a hand on his head and said softly, "I'm fine, sweetheart. Don't you worry." Leo scrambled up from the floor, staring at the two of us in disbelief. His eyes fell on the matching outfits Sam and I were wearing. His expression shifted from confusion to shock, and finally to a look of deep, profound hurt. Suddenly, he lunged at Sam, hitting and grabbing at him in a fit of uncontrollable rage. "She's my mom! Why are you calling her that?" Leo screamed. "You're not allowed to wear matching clothes with her. Get away from her!" He clawed at Sam's new shirt, trying to rip it off of him. Sam raised his arms, preparing to fight back, but then he froze. As soon as he heard Leo's words, as if he had realized something painful, he stopped moving entirely. He stood perfectly still, allowing Leo to push and hit him without any resistance. "Foolish child! I rushed forward and pulled Leo away from Sam with one swift movement. Your mother is over there, I said firmly. Don't go around claiming someone who isn't yours. I held Sam close to me and turned to face David. You need to control your little brat. If he causes any more trouble, I will call the police. David's face grew dark. He clenched his teeth and said, Elena, he is your son. Sam immediately wrapped his arms tightly around my waist and looked at them with defiant eyes. I am her son, he said clearly. Leo tried to throw himself at Sam again, but this time David grabbed him and held him back. David looked at me and slowly shook his head, disappointment written clearly all over his face. Elena, he said, you are being completely unreasonable. One day, when your memory comes back, you are going to regret this. Clara stepped in with her sweet voice, trying to soothe the crying Leo. That's right, sister. Even if you're jealous of how much David and Leo care about me, you can't just pick up some random kid off the street and pretend he's your son. Do you have any idea how much that hurts, Leo? I gave her a cold look and asked, Where is your father? What? She blinked, clearly confused by the question. I repeated myself. Your father, where is he? I want to find him and slap him across the face. I want to ask him what kind of a daughter he raised, one who throws around words like bastard without a shred of decency. Who are you calling indecent? Clara's face turned red with anger. You, of course, homewrecker, I said with a half smile. Then I took Sam's hand and turned to leave. Before we walked out of the store, I looked back at the clerk and said, The man over there will be paying for our matching outfits. His son ripped my son's shirt, so he needs to replace it. And my clothes, you can consider them compensation for my emotional distress. Behind us, Leo's voice rose in a loud, broken cry. You forgot me, and I don't even like you anymore. I don't want you anymore. Never again. I curled my lips into a faint smile. I didn't even bother to turn around. I just kept walking calmly and steadily back toward home. Once we were back in the apartment, Sam looked guilty. He came over to me and apologized in a small voice. Mom, I'm sorry. I made my little brother cry. Maybe you should go check on him. I let out a sigh. Why should you feel bad? He was the one who hit you first. I was just protecting my own son. What's wrong with that? And besides, he was the one who rejected me first. He has plenty of other people to care for him. I touched his neck gently. But you let him scratch you. That mark is pretty deep. Does it hurt? I pulled Sam closer to me and began to gently clean the wound. As soon as I touched it, the tears that he had been holding back this whole time finally began to fall down his cheeks. That evening, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I answered the call only to hear David's voice on the other end. He had borrowed the nanny's phone to call me. His tone was sharp and commanding. Elena, Leo is sick, David said. I responded flatly. Oh. He snapped back. What do you mean, oh? Aren't you worried? Aren't you going to come back and see him? I replied calmly, I'm not a doctor. Do you really think me looking at him is going to magically make him better? If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Before he could say another word, I ended the call. As I hung up the phone, I could hear the faint sound of a child crying on the other end of the line. But what did that have to do with me? Another week passed. That evening, I was in the kitchen preparing Sam's favorite dish, braised shrimp in a sweet soy sauce. He sat happily at the dining table, carefully peeling the shells from the shrimp. Mom, your shrimp is amazing, Sam said brightly, offering one to me. You should try it. He held a piece up to my mouth. As I leaned over to eat it, a memory suddenly surged up in my mind, like a wave I hadn't seen coming. Leo had once tricked me into making this very same dish. I had spent so much time preparing it just for him. But instead of eating it, he had carried the plate straight to Clara, hoping to please her. She had wrinkled her nose at the sight of it, saying the dish looked too greasy and that wealthy people would never eat such cheap food. Without another word, Leo had dumped the entire plate of my hard work into the trash can. My hand paused in midair and my eyes darkened slightly. Just then, the doorbell rang. I went to open it and saw David standing there holding Leo's hand. Leo remained silent, peeking inside the apartment with a nervous glance. David, on the other hand, looked confident and certain of himself. It's time, he said. Elena, I know you've remembered everything by now. Leo and I are here to take you home. What nonsense! I immediately moved to shut the door. David's expression shifted abruptly. He blocked the door frame with his arm, his voice now tinged with panic. You haven't remembered? He asked. That can't be. I counted the days. It should be today. You have to remember us. He stared into my eyes, searching for something. But when he saw nothing but coldness and disgust in my gaze, his confidence began to crumble. You're just pretending, right? He asked, his voice shaking slightly. You're still angry at Leo, so you're refusing to acknowledge us. I couldn't even be bothered to answer him. Leo suddenly threw himself at me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Mom, I was wrong, he cried. Please come home with us, please. I gently pushed him away from me. I am not your mother, I said softly. Clara is your mom. You said so yourself. Have you forgotten? Leo's face went pale in an instant, the color draining completely from his cheeks. David stared at me in shock. Elena, are you saying you don't want Leo either? His voice trembled. What went wrong? You have to come home with me. I'll help you recover your memory. Let's go. We're leaving now. He grabbed my arm and tried to pull me outside. I struggled to break free from his grip. In the midst of the scuffle, Sam came running out from the kitchen. Let go of my mom, he shouted. He flung the handful of shrimp shells he was holding at David's head. Oily red streaks splattered across David's hair and face. Sam didn't care about the grease on his own hands. He clenched his small fist and punched at David with all his might. Leo, meanwhile, was frozen in place. He stared at the shrimp shells scattered on the floor, unmoving. After a long pause, he finally lifted his gaze and looked toward the dining table. When his eyes fell on the plate of braised shrimp, his face changed. His eyes turned red, filling with tears. That's my shrimp, he whimpered. Why did you make it for someone else? His voice cracked with sorrow as tears streamed down his face. I remained completely unmoved. It's just a plate of shrimp, I said quietly. I made it because I felt like it. Sam loves it, so I make it for him all the time. You can't do that, Leo sobbed even louder. That was my favorite dish. How could you give it to him? His crying grew even more intense. I felt a surge of irritation. I yanked my arm out of David's grip. You came at the perfect time, I said coolly. Let's sign the divorce papers, the assets, the house, the cars. We split everything evenly. Leo stays with you. I'll provide child support every month. I turned and walked back inside, returning moments later with a set of divorce papers that I had already prepared. David simply could not accept it. In a panicked voice, he said, I will not get divorced. You're just suffering from amnesia. I will help you remember, Elena. Please just wait for me. Then, grabbing Leo's hand, he turned and fled in a rush. For the next few days, I didn't see either of them again until the day after I mailed the divorce papers to the Miller residence. I had just returned from the market with my arms full of groceries when I saw David sitting comfortably in my living room. Get out, I said coldly, not even bothering to look at him. I made a mental note to call a locksmith and have the locks changed as soon as possible. But David acted as if he hadn't heard me. His eyes were unusually bright and locked onto mine. Elena, he said eagerly, I've found a way to help you recover your memory. If I hypnotize you again just one more time, you will definitely remember, just like before. He stopped mid-sentence, but I caught the change in his tone. Narrowing my eyes, I asked sharply, David, are you trying to break the law? He didn't say anything, but his stubborn expression told me everything I needed to know. Ignoring my protests, he insisted on going through with the hypnosis. Elena, you have to remember. Leo and I have missed you so much. Please come back to us. From his bag, he pulled out a magnet. Before I could react, I felt my body grow heavy and my vision started to dim. I slumped onto the sofa. It was as if I had fallen into a dream, but in the dream there was only emptiness. There was nothing to see, nothing to hold on to. So I gave in to the feeling and drifted off to sleep. Voices began to echo around me, calling my name. When I finally opened my eyes, David's face was just inches from mine. He was holding my hand tightly. Elena, do you remember now? he asked with a hopeful smile. I'm your husband. We've been in love for 10 years. Look, here is our wedding photo. He held out a framed picture for me to see. I pushed it away without saying a word. David, I said coldly, if you don't leave right now, I will call the police. With a loud clatter, the photo frame slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. You really don't remember, he whispered in disbelief. How can that be? It's impossible. I did the hypnosis myself. It couldn't have failed. He started muttering to himself, pacing back and forth slightly. I don't believe this. I need to try again. I must have missed a step. He reached for the magnet again. That was enough. Without any hesitation, I slapped him hard across the face. Enough! Get out! He had truly lost his mind. After I threw him out, I immediately called a locksmith. But I hadn't warned Sam in advance. When he returned home from school and couldn't get into the apartment, he sat on the steps with his backpack, his eyes red like a frightened little rabbit. He thought that I had abandoned him. The truth was, I had only gone to meet with a friend. For the past few days, I had been visiting that friend daily, just for a short while each time. I had let my guard down, and because of it, Sam came home bruised and beaten. He avoided my eyes, mumbling as he tried to make his injuries seem minor. When I pressed him for the truth, he finally admitted that it was just a fight with another student. I looked at him and smiled gently. Do you really seem like the type of person to start a fight? Sam lowered his head and muttered, Promise you won't be mad if I tell you. It turned out the troublemaker was none other than Leo. He was jealous that I hadn't recovered my memory and that I was spending all my time with Sam instead of coming home. He had grown resentful. In his childish mind, he believed that I refused to return because of Sam. So he had paid a few older kids to block Sam on his way home from school and try to force him to leave. When Sam refused, they beat him up. I let out a deep sigh. This silly boy, I said gently, treating his wounds. Next time you fight back. Aim for the leader first. Go after Leo. Of course, I would never allow such a thing to happen again. I planned to confront David as soon as I finished tending to Sam's injuries, but before I could, they showed up at my door with an apology. Leo looked at Sam with a rare seriousness and said softly, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have tried to force you out or hit you. Please come back. He took a few steps forward, holding out his arms slightly, as if he were inviting Sam to hit him in return. But Sam didn't move. He replied calmly, Mom doesn't like children who hit others. I won't do it. I want to be the kind of child she loves. Leo grew anxious. But I'm good too. I didn't mean to hit you. It's just, you were taking my mom away from me. Sam tilted his head and said, But when I found Mom, she was lying all alone in an attic full of boxes. She was all by herself, so she's my mom now. I found her. She belongs to me. He paused for a moment, then added, And the doctor said that Mom has severe claustrophobia. If I had found her any later, it could have been very dangerous for her health. He turned and looked at both of them. Do you even know what claustrophobia is? Leo opened his mouth, trying to defend himself, but the words caught in his throat. The truth was finally sinking in. He had been the one who abandoned his mother. Sam had been the one to find her. And now, Leo's eyes welled with tears. He was close to crying. David turned his gaze toward me, his eyelashes trembling slightly. Elena, he asked quietly, when did you develop claustrophobia? I never knew. I answered without a flicker of emotion. Oh, I didn't have it before. I developed it after going to prison. David flinched, visibly shaken. Regret filled his eyes like rising water. He took a step closer. Elena, he said gently, come home with us. Leo and I will do better. We'll make things right. If you're uncomfortable with Clara, I will send her away. You'll never have to see her again. I'll find you the best doctors. We'll help you remember. You'll see. We can be a family again. Leo nodded quickly beside him. Yes, yes, I promise. From now on, you're the only mom I'll ever have. I almost laughed. Did they really not see it? I wrapped my arm protectively around Sam's shoulders. There's no need, I said calmly. I already have a family. And besides, do you really think you're the kind of people worth remembering? Leo began to cry again, but this time, he didn't sob out loud. He bit his lip hard, and the tears ran silently down his cheeks. Just then, our standoff was broken by someone rushing through the doorway. David, please help me! Clara stumbled into the room, her face pale and streaked with tears. She clung to David's arm in desperation. The police, they're looking for me, she cried. They say they suspect I was involved in a hit and run 11 months ago. Someone died. David's expression darkened. He glanced over at me, clearly checking to see how I was reacting. But when he saw the calm, unreadable look on my face, he relaxed slightly. He stepped back from Clara and pushed her hands away. His voice was no longer soft. Just cooperate with the investigation. There's nothing more I can do for you. Clara stared at him, stunned. You're really not going to help me? David turned his eyes aside. In the end, we were only friends. I've already done enough. I have a wife, a child. I have my own life to live. David, she cried, how could you do this to me? But he didn't answer. He simply looked away as Clara turned and ran out, her sobs echoing down the hallway. David's face remained unchanged. Then he turned back to me. Elena, he said, his voice hopeful. You saw that, right? I won't help her again. So maybe you could... No. I cut him off without hesitation. It's late. You two should go home now. The light in his eyes faded instantly. Taking Leo by the hand, David walked away slowly, turning back again and again as they went. The next morning, and the morning after that, and the one after, there was always a bouquet of roses left outside my door. Sometimes it was a box of pastries or other sweet treats. All of them were my favorites from the past, but without fail, every last one of them ended up in the trash. David would stand a short distance away, his eyes slightly red as he watched me, but soon he had no time left to come near me. Clara had been confirmed as the driver in the hit-and-run case and was now wanted by the police. She didn't stay hidden for long. In just a few days, officers caught up with her and brought her in. After Clara was taken into custody, I once again found myself walking out of the police station. This time, David was waiting for me. He looked completely worn out. His beard was unkempt, his clothes were wrinkled, and his eyes carried the heavy weight of sleepless nights. Yet, even in that state, he stared at me with a kind of desperation that was hard to ignore. Elena? He asked, his voice low and strained. Did you remember everything? I met his gaze calmly. Remember what? The stillness in my voice seemed to hit him harder than any slap. His fingers trembled slightly, and it took him a while to speak again. You remembered that Clara was the one who killed that person. That's why you went to the police and accused her, didn't you? I said nothing in reply, but I also didn't deny it. A flash of hope lit up in his tired eyes. Then what about me? Did you remember me too? He looked at me with the eagerness of a man who was drowning, reaching for anything that might keep him afloat. I nodded slowly. Yes, I remembered you too. His face lit up with joy, as if my words had breathed new life into him. But his joy didn't last long. I spoke again, my tone as cold as the wind outside. I remembered that you used your skills as a hypnotist to manipulate me. You changed my memories and made me believe I was the one who caused the accident, so I would go to prison in Clara's place. His expression faltered. It was you who gave me claustrophobia, I continued. Now I can't even step into an elevator without breaking down. With every word I spoke, his face grew paler. David looked at me with eyes full of guilt, his voice cracking. Please, Elena, don't say any more. I know I hurt you, he whispered. I was wrong. I'll make it right. I promise I'll make it right. I laughed, a bitter and cold sound. Make it right? What could you possibly do to fix this? He reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. The corners of my mouth curled into a smile that carried only revenge. You cost me my child, David. You owe me a life. Can you repay that? His eyes widened. His body went stiff, as if my words had turned him to stone. What? What child? I looked straight at him. 2 months along. Then I pulled a folded sheet of paper from my purse and tossed it against his chest. He caught it clumsily and slowly opened it. His hands trembled as he read the pregnancy report. As the truth hit him, his eyes grew wild with disbelief. Where? Where's the baby? What happened? Why did you lose it, Elena? Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? If I had known, I never would have. Never would have what? I cut him off with a mocking smile. That night, wasn't it you who told me to stay away? You said you were taking Leo out for a candlelight dinner with Clara and that I shouldn't interfere. No, that's not what I meant. David clenched his fists, his eyes welling with tears. He took a shaky step forward. I'm sorry, Elena, he said. I know I made terrible mistakes, but please, please forgive me. Let's start over. I'll do anything. I looked at him, unblinking. You really think that's possible? You nearly destroyed my life, I said. How can you expect me to forgive that? He looked desperate. Then what about Leo? If you don't want me, do you not want him either? I don't. My voice was calm but sharp. He said he wanted Clara to be his mother, so let him have her. And you never disagreed with him, did you? That means, deep down, you approved. At that moment, the last bit of color drained from David's face. There was nothing left in his expression but complete defeat. And of course, I wouldn't forgive him. Not easily, not ever. The day I received the pregnancy results happened to be David's birthday. I had planned a surprise for him, but on my way, I ran into Clara, and right on cue, the surprise turned into a tragedy. There was an accident. I was rushed to the hospital. By the time I arrived, the baby was already gone. And where was David? He was with Clara, comforting her, protecting her, trying to help her escape punishment for what she had done. Then, when I was at my weakest and unable to resist, they hypnotized me. They rewrote my memories and sent me to prison in Clara's place. Not once did anyone stop to ask if I was hurt, if I was even alive. So tell me, why should I ever forgive that? I lifted my foot, ready to walk away. But when I turned my head, I saw Leo standing just behind me. His face was streaked with tears. As I passed by him, I heard his soft whisper. I'm sorry, he murmured. I took a deep breath but said nothing in return. Instead, I turned to David and said calmly, if you want to know the truth, go to the police and watch the surveillance footage yourself. I have said all I need to say. And David did go. He went to the police station and watched the footage. Only then did he understand why I'd been at the scene of the accident that day. Only then did he realize how they had managed to frame me so easily. Clara had deliberately driven there to find me. She came to flaunt her so-called victory, bragging that my husband and son were spending the evening with her. With a smug smile, she mocked me for not being able to hold on to either of them. During our argument, she noticed a medical report I had dropped on the ground. When she saw that it was a pregnancy test, something inside her snapped. Driven by jealousy, she tried to run me over. She even shouted that even if she killed me, David and Leo would never hold her responsible. Clara laughed wildly. I, terrified, kept dodging and trying to stay out of her path. Then, at the most critical moment, she slammed her foot down on the gas pedal and drove straight at me. I dove to the side just in time, but Clara hit someone else instead, a drunken man who had been stumbling along the roadside. He died instantly. I survived, but I lost my baby. Back then, when David helped her destroy the surveillance footage, if he had looked just a little closer, if he had bothered to question what really happened, he would have seen the truth. But he chose to shield a woman who had tried to commit murder. He closed his eyes to everything for her sake. Watching the footage now, David's hands clenched into fists, his face twisted with regret. Leo sobbed uncontrollably, choking on his tears. Mom was bleeding so much. It must have hurt so bad. No wonder she can't forgive me. It's all my fault. Suddenly, as if he had snapped from grief and guilt, David lunged toward Clara, who was now sitting in handcuffs. He grabbed her hair with both hands and began punching her over and over again. It was you, he roared. You tried to kill Elena, you evil woman. Why would you do this? What did I ever do to deserve this? I treated you so well. Was it still not enough? You destroyed our whole family. Why don't you just disappear? David hit her with all his strength. Within moments, Clara's face was covered in blood. The sight was terrifying. Police officers rushed forward to pull them apart. David's eyes were bloodshot and he was shaking, teetering on the edge of a complete collapse. Clara spat out blood, coughed, then laughed through the pain. "I destroyed you?" she sneered. "David, do you hear yourself? If you hadn't led me on, I would never have had the chance to cling to you. Elena left you because of you. You made her take the fall for me. You forced her to go to prison in my place. You should be the one to die. Maybe then she would finally forgive you." Robert collapsed to the ground, his strength drained completely. He sank down, his whole body trembling. "You're right," he said weakly. "You're right, I deserve it. We both deserve it." He closed his eyes, then reached out and gently patted Leo on the head. Looking up at the officers, he said quietly, "Please take my son home." Then he added, "Officer, I want to turn myself in." When the verdict came in, both Clara and David were sentenced to prison. I wasn't surprised. My lawyer was, though. He said he never expected it to go so smoothly. Clearing my name, after all, had seemed like a long shot, especially since I had confessed to the crime myself at the time. But once David turned himself in, he admitted to illegally using hypnosis. That changed everything. The charge against me no longer stood. I was a victim, too. Back when I first heard the word hypnosis from David's own lips, I had already started to suspect that something was wrong. So during that time, I often went out to meet with friends, lawyers, and professional hypnotists. I needed answers. The day my memories fully returned, I immediately went to the courthouse with my lawyer and filed for a retrial. Thankfully, the truth came to light. I divorced David. He signed the papers willingly and gave me all of the family's assets. To lessen the impact on Leo, he begged me to take custody of him and register Leo under my name. Leo now lives in our old villa, looked after by his grandparents. Sam and I remain in our apartment. We live quietly, apart from all the chaos. And honestly, that feels just right. These past few days, I had been so busy gathering evidence that I had barely paid attention to Sam. The boy had been disappearing after school, never coming home on time. Even when I went to the school to look for him, he was nowhere to be found. He would sneak back into the house only after I'd gone to bed. One night, as I sat waiting, pretending to be asleep, I caught him tiptoeing through the front door. I grabbed him by the ear, ready to scold him. He immediately admitted his mistake, nodding his head like a little chick. But the very next day, he was at it again, not returning until well after dark. By Friday afternoon, I had made up my mind to go pick him up myself. Just as I stepped outside, I saw him running toward me, his backpack bouncing behind him, his arms full of bright yellow sunflowers. "Mom!" he called out, his eyes sparkling. "These are for you. I hope you are always happy and forever young." His face was glowing with pride. A wide grin stretched across his cheeks. I stared at the bouquet, stunned. "Where did you get the money to buy these?" I asked. Sunflowers in that quantity weren't cheap. He was just a grade schooler. Surely he hadn't scraped together his lunch money to buy them. Sam scratched his head, looking slightly embarrassed. "I earned it by washing dishes at the restaurant," he said. The owner paid him $20 a day. He had worked for half a month, scrubbing plates every afternoon just to afford this bouquet. My heart tightened. I felt both angry and touched. I was upset that he had been out so late every day, worrying me sick. But I was also deeply moved that he had gone through all that trouble just to buy me flowers. Most of all, I felt my heart soften completely. I pulled him into a hug and held him tightly against my chest. "Thank you, sweetheart," I whispered. "I love them." His cheeks turned bright red as he nestled in my arms, giggling like a happy little fool. After a moment, he seemed to remember something. He lifted his head and pointed behind him. "By the way, Mom," he said, "Leo came with me." He shrugged a little helplessly. I looked up, and sure enough, there was a second child standing quietly in the background like a shadow. Leo was holding a bouquet of his own, soft pink carnations. The flower meant blessing and well wishes. From the matching wrapping paper, I could tell the two boys had gone to the same florist. Most likely, Leo had seen Sam buy me flowers and decided to do the same. But now he was standing at the threshold, too timid to step inside. He lowered his head, nervously picking at his fingers. When he noticed me watching, he shuffled forward with hesitant steps and held out the bouquet. In a soft, trembling voice, he said, "Mom, I hope you stay beautiful and young forever." For a second, I just looked at him, surprised. Then I reached out and took the flowers from his hands. "Thank you," I said gently. The moment I accepted them, something in his expression changed. The tight line of his lips relaxed, and a faint smile finally appeared. Without saying anything else, he turned and started to walk away. "Aren't you going to stay for dinner?" I asked. He froze mid-step, stopping so fast that he nearly stumbled over his own feet. Turning back around, his eyes were already rimmed with red. "I want to," he choked out, nodding hard. "I really want to stay." I gave him a small smile and told Sam to take him inside. While we were eating, my phone rang. It was a call from the prison warden. He said David had fallen ill and wanted to see me. I answered without hesitation. "Don't call me again," I said coldly. "I have nothing to do with that man."